And everyone agrees on that. So that's great. And then you can maybe look across and say, well, we're pretty high on doing the superintendent as the administrative leader. And you just might want to jot down just a couple of notes. Don't rewrite the question. You know, I just jot down a couple notes, or just one of your team members could do that. And then that will help you just get an idea of where are we good. It's as important to repeat behavior that works as it is to shore up areas that you might want to improve in, to make sure that you keep doing the things that you're doing well. I do recall last time, too, that communication was something you were figuring out. And look at how high you are on that number 1 point. Do you remember that, Andy, when we first came? We were just trying to figure out what works. Every new team goes through that. Every time a new superintendent is hired or elected, the team has to figure out what do we want to hear, when do we want to hear, you know, all of those kinds of things. So as you look across, and you might say, it says which ones are low. So you might say, well, refrain from infringing on the superintendent's area of administration is a little bit low. Now, keep in mind, in this case, a little bit low is just a little above 4, which is still good. But at least, you know, this helps you to look at where are we really strong and where are some areas we still might want to improve. Does that make sense on how to do this? Okay, so just take a few minutes in teams of 2, and probably take you about maybe 20 minutes to go through this whole assessment, but that's the best way to get a handle on how are we doing it. For those of you in the audience, I have one other packet here. If anyone really wants to look over it.
I'll look over your shoulder.
You want to look at mine over right now? You guys feel free to do that.
I don't want to be on camera. Appreciate your hard work.
Oh, no problem. This would be a little bit different because they're working for a while and then we'll talk.
That's great.
Mention one thing. When you get to section 4, there was one board member who didn't answer a couple of the questions. We didn't put it as a 0. We just didn't factor it in. Because we board leadership is number 4.
Is that male?
Now it's anonymous, so I couldn't tell you. But someone just missed a couple of questions.
Is it this? Are you talking about this?
Yes. Board leadership and learning. Those last 3 or 4, there just weren't answers to, and instead of factoring it, it wasn't meant to be a 0. I don't think. It just was missed. Whoever did.
So the on the last one here, the orange bar, then that's not accurate.
Those are accurate.
Oh,
There's
okay.
a bottom. I'm talking about this one here where there's some missed questions right here. We just didn't factor those in.
I got you.
Yeah.
We just didn't factor those in.
Somebody got a phone call. They were working on
Yeah,
that
and then
day.
the next page.
And when they picked it back up, they
Yeah.
start on the next
Yeah.
section.
I decided that would be better to just not include that than
Yeah.
to. So chart 1. one. What would you say on board, well, we kind of walked through board superintendent relations, right? Relationships. What did you see in there, again?
I think we need
Anyone want to add any value to what we've already talked about there? Go ahead.
I just think we probably determined that Mr. Craig's probably making too much money. Since we're all right up here at the very tip
Too much
top
money.
of this. We
Well,
all have agreed that maintains a professional compensation package for the superintendent, and we are all at the brim,
yeah.
so. Mr. Craig may disagree, but
Well, Don, it says here, you're not supposed to be publicly criticizing the superintendent.
or criticize, state the facts.
Well, it wouldn't we're the ones that did it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
It wouldn't be
Yeah.
criticizing him, it'd be criticizing ourselves, because we're
That's
the ones
correct.
that did it.
Yeah, that's right. This is your assessment on,
Well,
how
it was
you
our
think you're doing.
compensation package, it was for him, but it was ours, so
Okay.
if it's wrong, it's our mistake. But I don't think it's wrong.
So, anything that your team would add to this, what you talked about in terms of the relationship between the board and superintendent in here? Anything to add?
I just offer a question, how do we give direction to the superintendent as a whole rather than individual members?
yeah.
That was the one area where you're a little bit low. That's a good question. What would you say? What are the ways in which boards do that? The various ways.
Have a meeting on, set on a course of action, wouldn't it?
How do you
Agree
give
on a
him,
course of
you
action?
agree on that, and what tools do you have to agree on a course of action? What's your big tool? You got two of them,
Evaluation.
actually. You do it
Evaluation.
through your evaluation process, that's one. And
And the goal setting,
setting your goals would be another way. If you have approved those goals as a full board, you've given clear direction to your superintendent. The third way is policies. And you're pretty strong when we get to that area. If your policies are pretty up to date and clear, that is how you know them. You can run with the procedures and the administrative rules it takes to run the system. And that's huge when you look at this relationship, because you do a pretty good job of, it's obvious you have a pretty strong team. That might be the one area to get really clear about. How do we give clear direction to superintendents? And making sure you're united in that. And then it goes well when you do the evaluation process because you have been clear about what you expect. And it looks like in this evidence here that you're doing pretty well on that. And last time I was here 2 years ago, there was a need to get an evaluation instrument up and running. And obviously you've done well as a board to get that working well, because that's what pretty much this says. Does that answer your question, Ella? Okay. Do individual board members have any power?
No.
It's humbling, but no. Those of you that have been around a while know. When you're fairly new, sometimes it takes a little while to figure out what you can and can't do. When you walk into a building, you're no longer just a community member or a parent. You're the board. And they look at you that way. And sometimes they have expectations of you that you can solve all their problems. But in the end, it's what you do collectively that makes the difference. And it's always good to just be reminded of that. Not just that that's the concept. We know that's the concept. But really, in action, what do you do then to make a difference? That's what the kids tell me they want to know. What is it that we can do to have a greater impact on our kids? And it's really important to be clear about that. And that's where research is coming in, teaching us what else can the school board do besides approve the budget and make sure we have good facilities and manage those political issues. That's what boards used to do until we came along with standards and assessment. And now we have measures throughout the system about how our kids are doing. So that's how you can have a greater impact, and there's some evidence as we go forward on some things that it would be very typical in any boardroom to see some areas you could work on. It's one of the reasons we threw a couple new questions in there. Okay, any other comments on your relationship? Keep it going, keep that communication going well, keep refraining, although you all had a 4, I want to point out on number 2.